Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, well over 350 people are killed and hundreds more injured after a magnitude 6.1 earthquake strikes in southwest China. President Park Geun-hye nominates an art professor from Seoul's Hongik University as her new culture minister. If confirmed, the president's new look cabinet will be complete. Plus, an American doctor infected with the Ebola virus is showing signs of improvement. The US also announces plans to send dozens of public health experts to West Africa to help fight the outbreak of the virus. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, August 4th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, at least 367 people have been killed and almost 2,000 injured after a powerful earthquake struck China's southern Yunnan Province on Sunday afternoon, local time. The 6.1 magnitude quake struck the densely populated city of Zhaotong, toppling buildings and damaging roads throughout that area. China's state-run Xinhua news agency says the earthquake was the strongest, in fact, to hit this region in 14 years. Rescue and search operations go on with over 2,500 troops dispatched to the worst-hit areas, carrying tents, food and other supplies. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon offered his condolences and said the UN was ready to lend humanitarian assistance if required. Back here in Korea, and President Park Geun-hye has nominated a mass communications and design expert as her new culture minister. Kim Jong-dok, a professor of visual communication design at Hongik University in Seoul, was named on Sunday. The presidential office cited Kim's experience and expertise in the arts and his leadership. These as qualities that would help him realize President Park's key state goal of cultural prosperity. Sunday's nomination comes more than 2 weeks after the president's previous nominee withdrew amid allegations of perjury at his confirmation hearing. The recent nomination also comes after President Park named Hwang Eui-ah as her education minister. The confirmation of both Kim and Hwang would give President Park a complete set of members for her new cabinet. Korea and the United States will hold their second round of high-level talks this week on the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul. Diplomatic sources say there are expectations of an outline of the timing and conditions for the OPCON transfer, as well as talks, as these talks are taking place just 2 months ahead of the annual security consultative meeting between the two countries. Now, discussions are expected to include an assessment of the South Korean military's response capability against North Korea's nuclear threats. The two-day talks begin on Wednesday in Washington, and the delegations will be led by Korea's Deputy Defense Minister Ryu Jae-sung and U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia David Helvey. The Korean government says it will publish a white paper on Korean women forced into sexual slavery by Japan during World War II and expects to do so by the end of next year. The Ministry of Gender, Equality and Family says it will work with the Gukmin University Institute of Japanese Studies and the Songyungwan University Center for East Asian History. The white paper will update an interim report from back in 1992 on the issue and contain new study results and data collected to prove the sexual enslavement of Korean women by the Japanese military. The government plans to translate the white paper into various languages, including English, Chinese and Japanese, to raise international awareness of Japan's wartime atrocities. Now, with the summer holiday season in full swing, many Koreans are going abroad to escape the very hot and steamy weather we have here in Korea at the moment. And over the weekend, Incheon International Airport, the country's gateway, set a new record of visitors going in and out of the country. Our Son Jung-in reports.
It's early in the morning, but the departure gate at Incheon International Airport is already crowded with vacationers leaving the country for their summer holidays. And fortunately for them, strong winds and rain brought by this season's typhoons didn't stop flights operating to their normal schedule.
I saw people waiting in long lines at the check-in counter. I couldn't wait that long, so I used the unmanned check-in system.
With the summer holiday season in full swing, the number of passengers using Incheon International Airport reached an all-time daily high over the weekend. It recorded a total of 158,000 passengers on Sunday, breaking the previous record of 156,000 set the previous week. Compared to the record daily number of tourists set last year, the figure represents a 10,000 increase. Experts attribute this recent trend to the surge in low-cost carriers and also to the strong local currency. To deal with the growing number of outbound travelers, the airport has stationed 6 additional security checkpoints and opened its outer parking lot. As the summer peak season continues until mid-August, officials plan to open check-in counters half an hour earlier at 6:30 a.m.
We estimate the daily number of passengers from airlines data to better prepare and provide the best service, especially during peak hours.
Officials advise passport holders to process their documents through the unmanned screening system to make the immigration procedure easier and less time-consuming. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, the number of low-cost carriers in Korea has exploded over the past few years, but they've generally kept their services short-haul, until now that is, because Xinhua recently announced that it will start flying quite a bit further than it used to. Our Na Hyung-kyung explains why.
Competition in budget airline market is becoming fierce in Asia, and Korea is no exception. That's why low-cost carriers are looking for a new source of profits, and launching long-haul flight services may be an answer for some, like Xinhua. The low-cost subsidiary of Korean Air is gearing up to offer non-stop flights to Hawaii next year. Budget airlines going long distances is still a difficult nut to crack, but Xinhua's senior vice president of PR, Emily Cho, says it's all about putting passengers at ease over safety issues.
Of course, before we can convince them, we have to make sure that our services are ready to deal with the long haul as well. Since it's something new, they have to get used to it. For example, our pilots need 1,000 hours of previous experience to even apply to Xinhua, which is the same as Korean Air. So that shows how much we are dedicated to our safety record.
Xinhua opened its doors for business in 2008, and it took 2 years before it began operating in the black. All 5 low-cost carriers in Korea, as of last year, are making profits, testimony to the continuing boom of the LCC market in Korea, but there's a catch.
Southwest or JetBlue. In the US, the main reason why they were able to grow this big is that they were using the minor airports because of cheaper airport fees. But all the airlines are focused between Incheon Airport and Gimpo Airport in Seoul, for example. In China and Japan, because the population itself is big enough, there's a lot larger pool of those maintenance people or flight attendants.
In order to survive in this very tough market, Cho says Xinhua needs to make its name more known to potential customers overseas.
The Korean airlines have a very good reputation among the Chinese people, and we're hoping to kind of bond with them emotionally first, so they want to come to us first instead of us coming to them.
The competition in this market will only get worse, and successfully launching flights to Hawaii will be key in locking down sustainable growth for Xinhua. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Monday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. The American physician who contracted Ebola while treating infected patients in Liberia is said to be improving. That's according to the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, who appeared on television shows on Sunday to quell public concern. He also said it was encouraging to see Dr. Kent Bradley walking out of the ambulance to Atlanta's Emory University Hospital over the weekend. The 33-year-old father of two will be treated in a special ward. He is the first known case of Ebola in the U.S. A fellow health aid worker with Samaritan's Purse missionary Nancy Wrightbull will be transported by the same medical plane to the U.S. soon. Meanwhile, the Ebola death toll has risen to 728, centered mostly in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, with a lowered mortality rate of 55%. The United States has announced it will send at least 50 public health experts within 30 days to West Africa to help fight the unprecedented outbreak of the virus so far without a cure. Fresh attacks on yet another UN school sheltering Palestinian refugees have killed at least 10 people in the southern town of Rafah. UN and Palestinian officials are putting the blame on Israeli airstrikes. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon condemned the attacks as a moral outrage and a criminal act, while the U.S. State Department said it was appalled by the disgraceful attack. A 4-day humanitarian ceasefire announced jointly by the UN and the U.S. Friday broke down even as it was getting started. As heavy fighting raged in parts of Gaza, broadcaster Al Jazeera reports Palestinians are struggling to reclaim the bodies buried under the rubble in Rafah. This as dozens of U.S. lawmakers are set to propose legislation to boost U.S. arms support to Israel to defend itself from Hamas and other attacks. Israel has wiretapped U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's phone while he was brokering peace talks between the Jewish state and Palestine that broke down after 9 months earlier this year. This according to a report by German weekly Der Spiegel. It said Israeli intelligence agencies listened to Kerry's conversations via satellite and that at least one other spy service monitored America's chief diplomat's calls. No comment so far from Washington or from Jerusalem. Meanwhile, in Iraq, up to 200,000 people have been forced to flee as the Islamic State militants have reportedly taken the town of Sinjar near Syria. That's where the United Nations says a humanitarian tragedy is unfolding. As a special envoy said, many are running to exposed mountains. He expressed grave concern for the lack of basic needs, including food, water, and medicine. Meanwhile, Iraqi state television has reported that the militants, formerly known as ISIL, also took control of the Mosul Dam on Sunday, which is Iraq's largest and provides much of the city's electricity.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, the Korean government is aiming to lure more Chinese tourists to the country with a plan to ease visa entry requirements and establish medical centres for foreigners and also resort complexes with casinos. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The number of Chinese people visiting Korea is on the rise, and the Korean government seems to want to keep it that way. Around 574,000 Chinese tourists visited Korea in June. That's almost half the total number of foreign tourists in the same period. The government says it will ease the visa application process and visa regulations for Chinese tourists by increasing the number of multiple entry visas so that more tourists can re-enter the country on a single visa. Authorities have also given the green light to the establishment of resort complexes with casinos and medical and education centers on the islands of Yeongjong-do and Songdo, which are near Incheon Airport, and Jeju Island in the south. The government is also allowing the establishment of for-profit hospitals and medical centers for foreigners in 8 free economic zones in Jeju Island in order to serve the rising number of medical tourists visiting the country. At least 10% of medical practitioners employed at the for-profit hospitals should have licenses from foreign countries, and the director of the hospital must be a foreign national. Similar deregulatory measures in the education and finance sectors will be laid out at a meeting later this month. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, we're in the middle of the dog days of summer right now here in Korea, but for farmers, it's never too early to begin thinking about the harsh winter months and ways to protect their crops. And to that end, a new type of heating system is catching on, and for good reason, as our Paulie reports.
This is a 6,000 square meter vinyl greenhouse in Gyeonggi-do Province that cultivates tomatoes. Heating it over past winter months would have cost the owner as much as $30,000 US. This past winter, it cost him just $3,000.
Now I only spend 1/10 of what I used to pay when I used the fuel-operated fan heater. It is a lot economical and profitable since it also reduces the harvest time by a month.
What's E's secret? He's using a newly developed heater called a carbon heating net that is buried underground in furrows between rows of tomato plants. It's placed 50 centimeters deep in the soil, and when connected to electricity, the ideal temperature for the roots of the plant is maintained. The system also promotes the growth of crops, increasing production while reducing the time needed for harvest. This carbon heating net is made with carbon and silicon in the form of a net and can adjust the temperature automatically to provide better insulation and save power. A local institute tested its efficiency, and experts view it as a promising development.
Because it raises the temperature of the roots, the growth period of crops in the early stages can be reduced by 2 weeks.
With high oil prices in the country, many farmers hope this low-energy device will take some of the sting out of Korea's harsh winter months. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Now, there are few things more satisfying on a very hot summer day than going inside and flopping in front of the air conditioner to cool off. But that comfort could actually be coming at a price to our health, as our Kim Hyun-bin explains why.
Lee Jae-ho paid a visit to the doctor a couple weeks ago because he had lost his appetite and began to sweat more than he normally did, even while in cool places.
I had headaches, a fever, and was coughing a lot. I was in a bad state.
To his surprise, the doctor told him he had pneumonia. Pneumonia typically occurs during winter months, but can also strike in the summer. Data from a local hospital shows that the number of patients diagnosed with a lung infection during the months of July and August is nearly 70% of midwinter figures. Doctors say that when summer heat reaches its peak, the immune system can weaken. The frequent use of air conditioning can also lead to respiratory problems due to a greater exposure to bacteria.
When it is humid, like in monsoon season, your lungs become weaker and cannot properly emit the germs that enter your body.
High temperatures can also raise the risk of strokes. The number of stroke patients surpassed the 1.9 million mark in both July and August last year, figures that are similar to those seen in winter. This is because the stress caused by prolonged exposure to heat can increase blood pressure, which is bad news for sufferers of diabetes and high blood pressure.
When you are exposed to the heat for a long period of time, you can get dehydrated, which can affect cerebral blood flow.
Doctors recommend drinking plenty of water and to cut back on coffee and alcohol, which may cause dehydration. Regular exercise and 7 to 8 hours sleep can also ensure that your immune system remains strong during the dog days of summer. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in the KLPGA as 19-year-old Kim Hyo-ju sets a new season prize record after winning the 2014 Hanwha Financial Classic. Now, Kim Hyo-ju, who despite the rainy weather conditions shot 3 under on the day to finish off with 5 under par to win the Hanwha Financial Classic, winning her 3rd KLPGA Tour of the season. With her winning $300 million, one or a little less than $300,000 US in prize money, she sets a new season record for prize money, earning a total of $770 million, one or roughly $750,000 US. Now, this breaks the record set by Shin Jae back in 2008. And now moving over to volleyball with the 2014 World Grand Prix Volleyball Championships taking place. The South Korean women's team looked great after the first two wins over Thailand and Germany, but their match against Serbia on Sunday was a different story. Despite putting up a good fight, Korea just could not stop the Serbian offense, losing 3-1, 22-25, 24-26, 25-21, and 25-9. Despite the loss, world volleyball star Kim Young puts up 21 attack points for Korea as she continues to shine even in the international matches. Meanwhile, Korea will face off against Serbia once again on August 17th. Now, despite the rain coming down in most parts of the nation, rain or shine, football does go on in the K-League Classic as Gyeongnam FC and FC Seoul drew 1-1 and Jeonbuk beats Jeonnam 2-0 during the Honam Derby. Meanwhile, let's take a look at another big match here. Suwon Samsung Blue Wings taking on the Pohang Steelers. Now, literally just right after the whistle blows, it takes just 44 seconds for the first goal to be scored as Santos sneaks one past the goalkeeper for an early 1-0 Suwon lead. 25th minute, Hwang Ji-soo, that's the equalizer there, and we're tied 1-1 going into the second half. But Suwon's offense unstoppable in the second half as Santos adds his second goal in the 59th minute, giving Suwon the 2-1 lead before Roger makes it 3-1 in the 86th minute of the match. Now time winding down as Kwon Chang-soo completes the crushing blow to the Pohang defense with one last goal in the 90th minute as Suwon crushes Pohang 4-1. Well, unlike football, you can't play baseball in the rain, so 3 of the games in the league were canceled due to the weather. But the Tusan Bears took on the Hanwha Eagles in Daejeon, so let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, going into the game here, first inning of the game, Kim Tae-gyun with an RBI single scores Chung Gun-woo, and Hanwha takes an early 1-0 lead. Third inning, Min Byung-hun with a sac fly to right scores Hug Young-min, and we're tied 1-1. Sixth inning, 2-man on, Choi In-sung deep to center field. Gone, or is it? After a video replay, the call stand, and the Hanwha Eagles take a 4-1 lead. Now, in the ninth inning, Yang Yi-ji would hit a solo shot to deep left, but no matter as the Hanwha Eagles take this game 4-2. And now finishing things off with the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. The world's fastest man, Usain Bolt, is back after 11 months, winning his first race in his return. With Usain Bolt going into the race as the last runner in the 4x100-meter relay, the Jamaican relay team finishes with a final time of 37.58 seconds, setting a new event record. With the win, Usain Bolt completes his return with a win as he's expected to only compete in the relay races. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. I'm Incheon with your weather update. Well, the Typhoon Nakri dissipated yesterday at about 3 p.m., but the torrential rain past the last couple of days just soaked the southern parts of the Korean peninsula. Well, right now, all the typhoon alerts have been lifted, but even if the typhoon has dissipated, we'll have lingering showers across the nation today. And humidity level will remain high at about 90% here in the capital, and temperatures will be rising to low 30 under lots of clouds, so it's going to be a one sticky day today. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is starting out at 25, then the high will rise to 30, while Daegu will climb to 31, and Gwangju and Busan should have a daily highs of 28 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 32 and 28, while Dokdo should see a high of 27, and Mount Keungang reaches at 23 this afternoon. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates, and I'll be back personally at 10 a.m. Korea time. Till then, goodbye.